Hello there and welcome back to Peaks Peak Hobby Homestead. I'm Lucas and today we're doing a pond update. So today we came up to the pond because it's been a while since we've done an update on the pond. Back in early October, we did a treatment to this pond to help slow down a leak that we had where we were losing about a ½ inch of water per day. So we treated the pond with a product called Pond Enviro DB110, and it's like a liquid product that you have pumped through a trash pump and out into the water, and it mixes and it sinks to the bottom, and it's supposed to help seal up any seepage issues that you have. And I've been trying to get a handle on whether it actually fixed our problem or not, but the main problem that I ran into is the fact that we treated it right at the beginning of wet season. So basically ever since we treated it, we've been getting good rain and snow and all those things flowing into the pond to where it's only gone up since we treated it, which is a good thing because the pond is full, but I've had a really hard time telling whether or not we still have a problem. We went a couple of weeks without any rain, and it seemed like we maybe lost an inch, inch and a half in that couple of weeks, which is not the rate of loss that we had prior to treating it. So I feel like it at least helped our problem. But obviously we still are losing some water. So that's kind of the quick update, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the things that we've done to kind of prepare and make this pond as good as we can make it. Now, when I did the treatment on this pond, we were actually about 3.5 or 4 feet below full. We were 3.5 feet to 4 feet below the culverts. So we had lost a lot of water during the dry season, and that was really disappointing for us. Now, we had plenty of water for the fish, so they were still healthy. We probably had 10 or 12 feet left. In fact, probably more than that, because the pond is about 18 feet deep in the deepest part. But it just doesn't look as pretty when it's not full. So I was disappointed by that. I wanted to come up with a solution that would help us make it as good as it could be. So we tried the DB110 treatment. Now, in the meantime, I also came up with another idea to kind of get the most out of what we have here. Because we don't have a lot of runoff flowing into this pond, it filled up last year in February, and then it seemed like it pretty much just started going down after that. And it was only full for about a month and then seemed to kind of start going down. So I don't think that we need as much overflow as what we put into the pond. We put 2 1-foot culvert pipes in here, but we've never even come close to having water flowing out of here that we would need that much overflow. So I decided maybe if I were to put plugs in the pipe on the end and then cut the overflow basically out of the top of those plugs to where the water would come up another 8 or 10 inches and then flow out of the top where I cut out an opening, then that would give us an extra 10 inches of water level to evaporate and to seep out or leak over time, so that once we go into the dry season, we're at least starting 10 inches higher than we did last year. And I thought about that for a while because I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the integrity of the pond, but I also am able to come up here often, keep an eye on things. And so when I decided to do this, I decided that once we got close to full, during any big rain, I would come up here and watch how the water flows in versus how the water flows out, and all I have to do is pull the plugs out if it doesn't work. So I'll show you what I put in there in the way of plugs and how that's working, because it actually has worked better than I expected. So now that the pond is full, we actually have water flowing out. We got kind of an even flow out of both pipes here, so that's working out well. Now, when it first filled up, we had debris floating in the pond, sticks and things like that. And so I did have to clear some debris from in front of them. And debris was my main concern with closing up some of the opening. Was I didn't want to plug it up to where we had no overflow and cause a problem. So I decided I wanted to make sure that I had a good spillway at the right level to protect the dam, because the last thing we want is for water to come over the dam and wash it out and ruin the whole pond. So I'll show you what I did in the way of a spillway there too. So the first thing I did was I set up a spillway over here, which this is naturally where they cut it just a little bit lower as a spillway to begin with. And I went ahead and cut it down just a little bit further, and then I lined it with stones so that it won't wash out. That way, if the pipes fill up completely, or they can't handle the flow of water, then the remaining water will run right across these rocks like a creek, and then on down into the overflow area anyway. So it'll come just right through here. That's covered in weeds, but that's more rock, and then on into the big rocks for the erosion control there. So I don't feel like we're gonna have any problems with the integrity of the dam. Now let me show you my culvert plug. So I bought those plugs from Menards. I had them order those for me, and they just slide right back in there. Now the culvert itself has a lip around that front edge that the plug fits right up against. And so all I did was I took silicone and lined that and put the plug in up against that silicone to seal it off. And then I cut out about a 2.5, 3 inch slot at the top there for the water to come out of. So if I have a rain that starts to push the limits of that to where it's not handling the flow, then I may make that a little bit bigger and sacrifice just a little bit of that depth. But I decided to start out there and see how that works. And actually, we've had a couple of rains since then that were really, really hard, soaking, flooding rains that caused some flooding in our area and that sort of thing. And I came up here and watched this as the water was flowing in, and we had no issues. Both of the culverts were flowing water really well, and the water actually didn't really get much higher than it is right here. It never did come across my spillway here. So we haven't even had to utilize the emergency spillway yet. Now, it's not quite spring yet, so we may get some more drastic rains this spring, and I'll continue to keep an eye on that, because I do understand that the last thing we want is for water to come over the dam on down that way. But I'm excited about this because I feel like it's working, and it brought the water level up another 10 inches. Not that we needed the extra depth, but if our leak continues, then we at least have 10 inches more water that can evaporate and leak out before we're down to even the full mark. So I'm really happy about that. That's the main progress update that I wanted to give you. Now, we will be starting to fish really soon. It's cold here today, and it's going to be cold for another month or two. But as the weather gets better and the temperatures of the water start to rise, we're going to be up here fishing. And I expect to see some major growth progress out of these fish. Now, we don't come up here and feed these fish every day. We fed them quite a bit last year to kind of get them started, and we put 15 pounds of fathead minnows in here as food for the bass. So the bass should have plenty to eat, and I expect that they will have grown pretty well. In March, they'll have been in here for an entire year. So I think this year is going to be an exciting year. We will probably start catching and cooking some of the bluegill and the catfish when we have campouts and things like that, because at this point they will have spawned, and we should have a decent population in here, and we don't want them to get overrun. We would rather have big fish than to have a lot of fish. So that's kind of what we're going for. I'm going to keep an eye out for the spawning activity, especially the minnows, because I want to know how that population's doing. I am probably going to stock a few more pounds of fathead minnows late spring this year, once I kind of figure out how our population's doing. I want to make sure those bass have a lot to eat, so they'll grow fast. I have some pretty big plans for some projects to do up here at the pond this year. I hope you will keep an eye out for our content, because we'll be bringing you along for the ride. We're going to clean up and level off a better spot for a campsite up here, and I plan on building a little shed so that we can store supplies and fishing rods and some things like that up here, so we don't have to haul it up and down the hill every time. Probably put in a proper fire ring, and yeah, so we're going to kind of spruce the place up and have a good time with that. And then, of course, you know, stocking some more minnows, and we'll have some good times fishing up here. So lots of fun content to come surrounding the pond. I hope you will keep an eye out for those videos. Leave us some suggestions in the comments for things that you might like to see us do around the pond. We won't necessarily be able to do them all, because we are limited on time and limited on budget. But we will do what we can, and it's always nice to have another person's eyes on what's going on, so that you get some more ideas. So that's great. Especially wanted to take a minute to thank Daniel Jacobson for commenting on one of my tractor videos and saying, hey, I need a pond update. I had been meaning to get up here and do that, and so he gave me just the motivation I needed to get up here and check it out. And every time I come up here, I think about how much I love it, how thankful I am that I can have something like this for me and my family to enjoy. So I appreciate that interaction. Daniel, if you're watching, my email address is in the About section of my YouTube page. Shoot me an email with your address. I'd like to send you some stickers just to kind of say thanks for watching our content and interacting with us. I appreciate that. So guys, this is how the pond looks today. I hope you enjoyed getting to see this update. It won't be long before the fish start moving back up shallow, and we'll get to see some action there. We'll be able to wet a line and have a good time with that. So I appreciate y'all watching. Come back and see us. Y'all take care.